Hello, Sanzar. I'm so happy to have you here in this series of calls that, as you know, are trying to show to the people that the people that we admire, the great entrepreneurs, have been in really tough situation in the past, and has been the way how they saw the situation instead of a problem as an opportunity that made them success. And in your particular case, we share a lot of beautiful things like YPO and Harvard, but we also share a crazy fact for an entrepreneur that we both grow and born in very, I don't want to say crazy, but complicated places. I'm in Venezuela and you in Afghanistan. I think by far you're more complex than me. We are in the same way, but oh my God. So I think this interview is going to be amazing, amazing. So as you know, please, we want to know, brother, how you start at the beginning, even the school, the first things, the first flag that let you know what, this is what I want to do. So thanks again, my friend, to be here. And please tell me your story.
Sure. Thank you, Ricardo, for your time. And I'm so honored and pleased to be a part of this. So to go back to the beginning, my father's from Afghanistan and my mother's from the United States. They met when they were studying in medical school in the University of Washington in Seattle in the United States. And that's where I was born as well. And then when I was 4 years old, or about 5 years old, they did a migration to Afghanistan. And I call it a reverse migration, because that's when the Russians came to Afghanistan and everyone was leaving the country. Millions and millions of refugees were leaving Afghanistan, but my parents moved back. And so we lived on the border in a city called Peshawar and they would go back and forth to Afghanistan. And they were helping the war victims. So they were doctors and they were treating a lot of the patients and the injured. They ran a clinic, they ran a university, a lot of things.
One second. So this is even more complicated because the big enemy of the crazy bad guys in Afghanistan is the US. So, and you are an American guy. And even your mother is American.
Yes.
So it's, oh my God. So this is amazing also, because I know that people that study medicine, it's not a business. It's a real commitment. It's a life commitment. And it's so noble that your family, even though they were living in the US, that we know that is a fantastic place to live, they go back to, so, and it was for the situation that they feel that they need to go back, or what was the reason to really go back?
Exactly. It was out of, I think, a need to help people. So yeah, people in the medical world, especially, see how many lives you can impact and help and save. And so given, it was a very difficult war, over 1 million Afghans were killed. So again, this is back when the Soviets came, the Russians came, and my parents were working on the relief side in Peshawar. And that's where I went to school. I went to a British medium school in Peshawar called Beacon House. And I grew up, I went to then high school in Islamabad in Pakistan. And then that's when the Taliban first came to Afghanistan. And back then, it wasn't, the US was never a big enemy. It was very opposite, actually. The US was considered heroes. Because every Afghan knows that the turning point in the war in Afghanistan, when the Russians occupied Afghanistan, was when the US gave these handheld Stinger missiles, where they would chase the Russian airplanes using heat-seeking technology and then blow them up. And so thousands of Russians' airplanes and were destroyed during that time, and that's when the turning came. That's when they saw they couldn't win this war, and eventually they left. And when they left, unfortunately, that's when the civil war started, and there was a war between Afghans themselves, which many different countries had different hands in it. But that's when my family, took a step back in Pakistan for a little time. During that time and during the first time the Taliban came, it was a very difficult time. And I went to university at that time. So I went to University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, UPenn, and I started work for Merrill Lynch in New York City. Actually, I lived and worked on Wall Street in New York.
So nice.
And that was then when the government in Afghanistan changed and the Russians went to not the Russians. The Americans then went to Afghanistan, to try to find Osama bin Laden and, to try to topple the Taliban government at that time. Wow. And they set up a new government with Karzai. So my father then worked as the deputy minister of health in Karzai's government. Wow. And he called me up when I was at Merrill Lynch, and I'd only been 1 year in New York.
Can you help me?
You know what? He said, your country can use you more than New York. Wow. And so I sold everything I had, and I just got on an airplane and I moved to Kabul, to Afghanistan. So this was early, 2005, 2006. In those days, there was never any suicide attacks. There was, security was very good. And I joined a venture capital firm. And we wanted to do venture capital in Afghanistan. This is a post-war economy, and everyone's building up. There's a lot of, interest, and there was a lot of optimism and positivity. And so I actually met with 300 different businesses and entrepreneurs that they wanted, financing from venture capital to go about it. And then things started to change. The security started changing. The first suicide attack happened. There was demonstrations, and what the investors realized that it's no longer really a post-war country. It's actually going back into a war. And so that fund closed down, and I joined the U.S. government, and I was working on a program to organize all of the the cases in Afghanistan, criminal cases and civil cases for the government. So I worked from the US State Department on a program in Afghanistan where we had all the different databases and combined them into one single system. So whether it's the courts or the prosecutors or the police or the military or intelligence, everyone had one system that they could use. My background is computer engineering. That's what I studied at UPenn. So this is something that I really enjoyed doing. But working for the government, coming from the private sector and venture capital, very, very, very quickly I got frustrated. So much bureaucracy, so much difficulty. Working in government, and I saw just these horrendous things. The females' prison, they would open it up at night for a brothel. The crazy things that you could never imagine. It was just so difficult, to see so much, bureaucracy. I know I'm a very active guy. I want to, get things done. And so I left that position and I started my own firm. I started a company called Afghanistan Financial Services. So I really enjoyed what I was doing in venture capital, and I really enjoyed technology. And so we did a lot of systems, financial.
Sanzar, 1 second. So at this time you were married, you had kids or not yet? So
yes. So when I got to Kabul, I got married, to a wonderful, lady. I'm so delighted, but I hadn't had kids yet. I think I started we had our first child a few years later. Now I have 5 children, thankfully. And so
I've been working hard.
But back then, no, it was just, my wife and I, and we traveled a bit out of Afghanistan, to just get a breath of fresh air every now and then. But a lot of it was focused on kind of rebuilding the economy, during that time. And starting a business, in any country is difficult, right? I was taught. I did a distance MBA from Warwick in the UK, and they said, 70% of all new businesses fail, right? Because, it's difficult, right? You run out of cash or capital or financing or competition or whatnot. There's so many, a million different obstacles for a new entrepreneur. And so I said, let's try it. But in Afghanistan, it was particularly difficult. And difficult finding the people, finding clients, simple things were very, very challenging in Afghanistan. And once we had this financial services company, someone said, "Oh, I heard, Sanzar, you're doing financial services. Can you do my taxes for me?" And so we ended up doing a lot of tax work in Afghanistan. Then they said, "Oh, you're doing my taxes. Can you do some, HR work for our payroll as well?" And then, "Oh, can you do some legal work?" And so slowly, we ended up doing a lot of different services, professional services for different organizations. Got it. And in a few years, in about 5 years, we had served 700 international organizations. We had 350 employees, mostly accountants and auditors.
And all these people is in Afghanistan or is out of Afghanistan?
All of them were in Afghanistan.
And one more thing, you know what, that I really love from your story. Well, first of all, I have no idea about all this. It's amazing. But I have also, I don't know if passion or willing or a goal to really invite my entrepreneurial friends, smart guys, to do something in the political arena, because it's exactly what you said. So it's so frustrating. It's so crazy how bad is this field in the politics. But in the other hand, if we don't do something in this field, it's affecting so much the economy and life of so many people in a country. So it's a so complicated situation. I have a person that I met in Macedonia. This was many years ago. And this person was the minister of external something. And he was educated in the US. And kind of like you, the president of Macedonia this time, this was probably 6 or 7 years ago, called him. He was in Chicago having his beautiful career. And he became, this leader, I think it's the tourist something or promoter for the tourism in the country. So, but to my point, I remember that I saw a huge change in Macedonia, but it's because instead of just having one like you, there was kind of a politic, like let's bring the best talent and at the same time, and together, because what I really believe, the system, the political system is so complicated and so bureaucratic and so another world that if you are alone, you're not going to make it. But if there is a bunch of great kids with a good idea, with this spirit to make a change, I really believe it's possible. And you know what? I'm not going to stop pushing all my friends like you to generate this, what I call political entrepreneurs. I really believe we need a new generation of people that really jump in the field with all this learning and knowledge that managing a company can be useful, managing a company. But this is so interesting that you have been there and then but I can imagine that. So another thing that I saw is that is the typical thing in business. So being there in a super complicated situation, you have been seeing so many opportunities and creating and bringing value to serve all these. So this is why, because when you start talking, so days ago, you told me that you have this holding company. So, wow, it's so complicated, but now I understand. So there is everything to do. And there is not so many professional people with this passion for the country. So beautiful.
Exactly. And so that's exactly right. There was actually a similar initiative in Afghanistan where they brought, young, talented, entrepreneurs and Western educated, people to Afghanistan. And it had, advantages and disadvantages. But there's so much that, government can learn from entrepreneurship and from business, from customer service. So you're here to serve the people, and in a lot of countries it's the other way around. They think that the customers, they treat them very badly, the citizens. But the government is the whole purpose of the government is to serve the people. So that customer service mentality is one thing. Balancing budgets, making sure that minimize expenses, waste, fraud, and abuse, proper HR management. I mean, there's so many vital lessons from the business world that haven't been properly applied in many governments, least of all the Afghan government, and that's what we're seeing more and more actually today. The results of that.
Sanzar, one question, because your father and your mother are both doctors. So
yes.
It's not entrepreneurs, are doctors. Where do you feel that you get this inspiration? Because I think that we entrepreneurs are very strange animals, because it's hard to live in this world, it's a lot of brave and maybe a little bit crazy, to really start just with a dream and make it. So in your family, you saw some, because remember that part of the idea of these stories is to show people and make people reflect, okay, where I get this, or how can I get inspired? So where do you feel you get inspired to start making companies? Because you didn't study business, you studied engineer, and your family were more in a passion for health and more than, where do you get that?
Exactly. And not only were they in a passion for medicine and for health, they also encouraged me to go that same path. A lot of, Afghans, their preferred opportunity is medicine. Actually, in Afghanistan, when you graduate from high school, you take a college entrance exam, and automatically, the highest scoring students, they are entered into medical school. They don't even ask them, do you want to go to medical school? That means number one. Then number two, the next scoring, they go to engineering. And then the last one, they're, teachers and others. So basically, if you fail the exam, you end up anything else. Just automatically, that's because they think that that's what people want. But that's not what I wanted, at all. Even my parents, when I was taking, statistics classes, they were like, health statistics is also a very good field. Or I was taking, management, and there were, healthcare management is also good. Anything related to.
But by the way, Penn State is one of the best in medicine, I in my understanding. So
UPenn. So there's Penn State and UPenn. UPenn is also, they have a great medical school. They have a great business school. Wharton is known to be one of the best business schools in the world. And so I think I got a little bit of that probably from Wharton. I really enjoyed the classes there, the professors there, a little bit of that, a little bit working for Merrill Lynch. When I was at Merrill Lynch, I worked with stock exchanges. And I even realized, stock exchanges, I always thought of it somehow that it was a government thing or something like that. But no, stock exchanges are actually a business themselves. And the Philadelphia Stock Exchange was actually partially started and owned by Merrill Lynch. And so I started thinking more and more along those lines. But in terms of my own inspiration, I think I really probably lack patience. That's what it is. And when I work for anyone else or for the government or something else like that, it's very, very difficult for me because I just want to jump to the action. And I want to see the results. And so if I'm if I'm held up for reasons that are not within my control, it's very, very difficult. So being an entrepreneur, that motivation helps a lot. The last thing I'll say about that is probably optimism. I have this unbelievable, uncanny, I think, ability to be completely optimistic in the most incredible, difficult situations. And I think for entrepreneurs, that's something that's very, very important. If you don't have optimism, anything that happens, like, oh, forget about it, can't do it, too bad, it doesn't work out. All right, I'll try something.
You are really the perfect profile for entrepreneur. It's true, optimist, and also this willing to make these things, or make this happen. Execution is also very important as an entrepreneur. It's true. Wow. So
keep going. And in Afghanistan, it's even worse. So as we grew as a company, we were doing more and more financial things, and we were doing a lot of audits, and we had the most difficult situations. We audited, small firms. 70% of their receipts and paperwork was fraudulent. They would go to any shop, and the shop would give them, instead of a receipt, would give them a blank piece of a blank, form, and say, okay, you fill out your own receipt, whatever you think it was. So instead of a generator, they would say a generator is, $50,000. They would write $100,000 and then go get reimbursement, from their business or something. So, a huge amount of difficulty doing, simple things. My favorite story is actually about fuel. There were so many ways that people could steal fuel. So when we're trying to audit for our own business and for other businesses fuel, one time we had this one client, an American. He was like, that's it. Every time we get fuel and we end up getting less, and we don't, someone's stealing from me. I don't know who it is, but this time I'm going to make sure that I don't lose any fuel. And so he sat in the tanker, in the truck himself. And he drove with the driver all the way up to the place. He filled up the tanker full with fuel, and he watched, this many liters or gallons is going to be filling up the tank. And then he sat back and he watched the truck all the way to his compound. And he took out the fuel, and he's watching again. And again, he has less fuel. And he's like, what happened? I was with the fuel the whole time. Where did my fuel go? Who took my fuel? Who stole it? Who did it? And we're the auditors, right? And so we have to make sure, what's the financial side is going on. So we looked and looked and looked. Finally, we found out when we opened up the fuel tanker, we looked inside, the truck driver was putting mattresses, like sponges, these big bed mattresses inside the truck. And so when the fuel would go in, the mattress would absorb the fuel. And then he would go home and he would take the fuel out of the sponges to take the fuel for himself.
Wow.
So, the most absurd things. Yes, there were attacks and there was, rockets, and, I missed several. We had our own employees that, had all kinds of stories. I would, travel around the country. But it was really, at the end of the day, an experience of incredible amount of I think optimism, that you have to say, all right, it's going to work out. This will pass as well. We just have to keep going and not stop.
So beautiful. And Sanzar, one question. Do you have, because I would love to see you as a president of your country, there is any way that you jump on this field, because you have everything. You have this positive attitude, you have this stress for execute and make things happen. So you are like an electric motor, so ready to jump. So have you ever considered to run or to do something maybe in a different time? Because I know that right now it's like a mess.
Yes. My father and my in-laws, they've been involved in politics, and I've been able to see from a distance, a lot of the difficulties. So my father was then the advisor to the president, senior advisor for many years. Then he was the ambassador from Afghanistan to Qatar in Doha during the negotiations and between the US government and the Afghan government. He was also briefly the chief of staff for the president in Afghanistan. And I saw, there's so much mudslinging in Afghanistan, at least in Afghanistan. Maybe in other countries, I assume it's similar as well. Mudslinging in the sense that, there's character assassinations and there's a lot of different things. And, yes, I'm an entrepreneur and I have a lot of energy and optimism, but in the back of my head, I still have a little bit of that engineering. And I like, 1 + 1 = 2. It needs to be clear, straight. And not to make compromises.
Yes, and in politics, forget it. 2 + 2.
And politics is all
7,
about
11 or 1.
Politics is all about compromising and deals, and it's not 1 + 1 = 2. You know what I mean?
Complicated.
It's not finance, so it's very, very difficult for me. So I don't think I'll ever be involved in politics, but in terms of helping people, definitely. I want to serve people. I want to help people as much as possible. If that means bringing food, if that means bringing healthcare. And so in August, when the Taliban came to Afghanistan, I had a choice. I had a choice to make. Should I just pack up and leave and abandon the country? We set up 10 different businesses over the years in Afghanistan, and just say, it's too difficult. That's it. I don't want to. I just want to give up and retire or something like that. And that's when the UN came out with a report, and they said in their report, 22.8 million Afghans might starve to death this winter. Wow. Including 1 million children might die. Why? Because all the businesses closed, 500,000 Afghans lost their jobs. There's a famine, there's a drought, there's US sanctions, US froze $9 billion of assets, humanitarian aid stopped, all of these different circumstances all came at the same time. So I said, okay, I've worked hard all these years, and this is the time when my country needs me the most. And if I walk away and I, wash my hands and say, forget it, it's too difficult, Afghanistan, there's not even a flight, what can I do? That will be the biggest betrayal of all. And so I said, no, this is the time I need to give it everything I've got, just whatever savings, whatever time, whatever effort, to not only not fire my own employees, but hire more people and try to figure out how I can help. And that's what I've been focusing the last 6 months on.
You know what? You remember something that for me was, wow, a life changer. In Harvard 3 years ago, in one of the classes, one of the professors says, hey guys, as a YPOer, if you made something special in your own companies, the impact in the world is going to be amazing. And this is what we are doing. So instead of complaining, no, you have a possibility to impact so many lives as you have done so far. That is incredible. And it's true. And this applies not just to YPOers, to every single entrepreneur. So we really have the chance to change lives. And I think that another person, Luis Almagro, is the General Secretary of the American Organization of American States. He says something in one of the interviews. He says, Rick, to be a good leader, you first need to be a good person. And it's so true. Now let's jump in your mathematical thing. Let's go to the question to make a statistic. How old are you right now?
Right now, I'm 39 years old.
Oh my God, super John. Okay, amazing. So many things done so far.
I'm young, but what I learned from that is especially from YPO and the Harvard experiences that we have. It's great. I'm proud of the businesses and I'm proud of my family and I'm proud of that. But I really came about, I'm getting to this, the 40 age, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what do I want to really do in my life? I don't need to worry about what to eat, what to do it. And it's really what YPO and what these programs have helped me learn and realize is what my mission in life would be. And that I came after, a lot of thought. It sounds simple, but it's to help the most number of people. So if I can look back and say, I've made a difference in the greatest number of people that I could possibly do it, then I would feel like it's a life, well lived. And so anything that I can do, that's how I try to analyze opportunities. How much of a difference can I make and how many lives? If I'm going to do this opportunity, maybe it'll impact, 10 lives. If I do this opportunity, maybe 1 million lives, then definitely I'm going to go to that. Even if it's not as fruitful in terms of financial, even if it's not, easy, if it's the harder way. No, if it's the right way, and if it's a way to make a difference and help more people, then definitely that's the route I need to pick.
Brother, God bless you. And for sure, it's going to make you way happy. And by the way, your 5 kids are going to be great people just to see your example. So this is the way to go. Next question. 5 kids, right? 5 kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
a lot of kids. You love a lot of the fathers. Okay. Then I have to. Then, okay. Every single day, at what time do you wake up?
I wake up at dawn, so it depends on what dawn is. So I'm Muslim, and in my faith, we pray 5 times a day. One of the times is right before dawn. So sometimes that's 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it's 4. Right now, it's shorter days, so it's closer to 6 o'clock in the morning. So that's the time that I wake up every day.
So you wait for the light, and when the light appears, you start making your prayer. This is how it works?
Sure. Yes, exactly. So there's 5 prayers, and they're all dependent on different times of the day. One of them is at the first light. So it's not when you can see the sun, but just the first light. That's the first prayer.
But is it alarm? But you have an alarm, or it's just that you open the window, so you see?
Yeah, no, there's a schedule, there's an alarm. So you check, what time does the sun come up? What time, is that prayer, the first prayer of the day? And then we do it. And so I wake up, and then I wake up my 4 kids, not the 5th one. The 5th one is still a baby. So I wake up the 4 kids, and we pray together. It just takes 2 minutes, wow. But we're thankful for what we have, and it's just a beautiful, wonderful way, a grateful way to start the day. Is with a prayer.
But you know what? This is another beautiful example. So I'm a Christian. You are a Muslim. And we are brothers, and we love each other, and we have in some way the same goals in life, and we're looking for. So I get gospel. So so many times, crazy people use religion to make a fight, and doesn't make any fucking sense. So
it doesn't.
So
it doesn't make any sense at all.
At the end of the day, we are always we're trying to do the best, and we are this pray. I think go to the same place in some way. So it's so nice, these things. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
it really is. And that's, I think, one of the beauties, of the world is to understand that those commonalities exist. So my mother was actually Christian, and she converted. And so I grew up quite a bit with my mother's parents, my grandparents, and I went to church regularly on Sundays. And I was actually even a Bible camp counselor for some time. And people were saying, how you're a Muslim, how did you teach the Bible? And I said, it's all the same stories, Noah and the ark and Moses, and, I love Jesus. And, if I don't love Jesus, actually, I'm not a Muslim. I have to love him. That's the only way. If I don't believe, he was, and so all of that, it helped bring the world a smaller place. And I think that's also one of the great things about YPO. It makes the world much smaller. You realize actually the similarities are much, much more than the differences. And the differences, people use it for their own advantage, but it's not really there.
Let me tell you something. I have maybe 90 interviews. I think this is the one that I love the most. It's so beautiful. This is so nice. This is, okay. Then, do you do exercise every day, or how often do you do exercise?
3 times a week I exercise. And I used to do a program called F45. And when I went to Afghanistan, I missed it. So then I started my own franchise of F45. It's an Australian company, really amazing firm. Similar to what you were saying with Sweat, F45. And so we started 2 in Afghanistan, and we started 4 studios in the US, just so much fun, to get exercise. And it's the opposite of what people think. People think, you exercise will make you tired, but actually exercise gives you energy. And so
100%,
2 days a week for sure.
And also endorphin. So you became happier when you finish exercise. So important, exactly. Also for the mind. But you know what? I also love that you are sharing, for example, that this system of these trainers at these gyms are almost the same of the US. And you have two in Afghanistan. So because when we saw the news, for me, Afghanistan is like literally the war. So bombs right now. Yes. And there is a life going on there, more than the crazy guys fighting. So yes. it's so important also, brother, to show that in your country there are beautiful things happening at the same time. So it's like this, because life go on and
exactly. And Afghans, they do have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and so people wouldn't believe it, but just for fun, I would take out the team bowling. And they're like, you have bowling in Afghanistan? Yeah, we have 2 bowling alleys. We have big water parks. We have, gyms. We have all sorts of amazing, entertainment and fun and life. And you can do so much there in Afghanistan, but people don't imagine it. They think, it's a desert and there's bombs and people fighting.
Exactly.
And, what are the people worried about? Well, they're worried about inflation, just like in Venezuela. And they're worried about, the price of fuel or the price of, this or that. And what do they eat? Well, they eat, food just like you and I do.
Exactly.
But it's it is strange how much the media affects people's perceptions of what things are going on. All over the world, very, very different views of not only religion and people and countries and but also even in terms of no matter how much you try to think that you're open-minded, you still feel like sometimes it's that brainwashing going on, and so you have to fight against that norm. When everyone is headed for the exits, you have to say, okay, wait, I'm not going to follow what everyone else is doing. Let me see 100%. For myself what's going on.
Okay, next question. Do you have someone that you admire during your whole life? Could be whatever. Family, outside. There is one person that oh my God, this was kind of always my legend.
Yes, there's a person, his name is Hamza, Hamza Yusuf, or his early name was Hansen. He's an American from California. He now has he's the founder of a university called Zaytuna College. And he is just the most incredible person I've ever met. And I've met him. I've had the fortune of spending time with him, and he tried to see what life is all about because he had a near-death experience when he was in his late teens, and then he tried to look at what should I do in life? What is the meaning of life? I was about to die. What was going to happen then? And this curiosity led him on a path that he went to Dubai, and he went to many different countries. Ended up 10 years in the desert of Africa, in Mauritania. And he had this incredible amount of experience and knowledge. And so just, the amount of good that he tries to do for people in terms of education, in terms of trying to stop, stereotypes and try to helping people is just phenomenal. And so he's probably, affected millions of lives, but a lot of people don't know about him as well. So I'm really, a big proponent, of him. When I was younger, probably someone more like Mother Teresa was really, really great. This selfless character that would go to, other sides of the world. And my grandparents as well. I remember, their version of Christianity was the same thing, helping people. And so we would spend, days and days filling up, bags with notebooks and papers and pens to send it to school children in Africa, or making packages of winter, or all these different things. The more you do in charity, the more you can help other people that are less fortunate to you. That's the good deeds that you can take with you in the next life, because we're all going to die. And so it's maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe 10 years from now, we don't know. But the only thing that we can take with us is our actions. And so
Sanzar,
that is from a young age.
One book that you feel changed your life, one book that you remember like, oh my God, this is the one that I love.
There's a book called The Giver by Lois Lowry. And that book really made a difference on me. And it showed a lot about, I read it when I was very young. but it showed how, systems are to control a lot of people. And back in Rome, they said the way to control people is through food and circus. That's how you control people. You have cheap food, and then you have a lot of entertainment. And I feel like that's what the world has become now. People aren't really thinking about the big problems, about how to, change, things in the world, improve the lives of people. There's just so much circus going on, from, whatever, Netflix and movies and video games and all this just entertainment that people are drowning in it. And food, they have cheap, poor nutrition, fast food that are making people more and more unhealthy. So the same thing that were used to control people in Rome, back in the day, with the gladiators, with a lot of, circus and pomp, that's what's happening to the world now, unfortunately. And so The Giver made me show how people, if you're not questioning around you, not seeing, behind the curtain, what's really going on, then you too are just going to be one of those, suckers, that's going to not realize and wake up, from what's really happening.
Okay, the last question, Sanzar. If you need to give an advice, just one advice to the people that are listening, what should be this advice?
I think it's going to be a little bit further on what you said about being a good person, and that reflects in your family life as well. So if you can focus on your marriage, if you can, they say happy wife, happy life. If you can focus on your parents, serving your parents, if you can focus on your kids and raising them to be, good human beings with empathy, that is then going to transcend everything else. That's going to, I've met people that are successful. If they're successful in their home life, especially, and they're good to their kids and they're good to their families and they're good to that, then everything else seems to work out. They have business, they have, political, whatever it is. But if they're terrible at home and they're a dictator and abusive with their own family or their kids or their own life, and they have, these horrible things in their home, everything else is going to fail. It's going to fall apart. It's not going to do it, because you need to reflect yourself and be, change your own heart, right? And change your own self first, and have that reflected to the people that are most important to you, most closest to you. Once you can do that, everything else will fall into its place. So that's where the focus needs to be. And one of the people that I met, people were asking, how do I raise good kids and what do I need to do? And they said, don't worry about your kids. Focus first on your marriage. Focus first on your own, self. Then they will learn from your example. And others around you, your business, all of that, they will see your sincerity and your genuinity, and your spirit and your soul. And so that's my one bit of advice. Focus internally, and everything else externally will fall into place.
Sanzar, I absolutely love this interview. I love you, brother. Thank you very much for your time. God bless you, because what you are doing is amazing. You're a great human being, an amazing YPOer. Thank you again, brother.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. You're very, very kind. I'm at your service, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Send a big hug. Take care.
Thanks.